the soft clinking of glasses, low jazz humming through the speakers, and forced laughter filled the decorated company hall, where fairy lights hung like tired stars above a room of corporate hierarchy pretending to loosen up. It was the annual year-end party at Pearson Lang Logistics. Expensive suits, sparkling gowns, a bar too generous, and a dance floor barely used. Malcolm Johnson stood near the far wall, a man easily overlooked in a crowd. Dressed in a simple navy shirt and slacks, he held a glass of ginger ale, swirling it idly, eyes darting between the exits and his phone screen showing a picture of his 8-year-old daughter, Amara. He didn't come here to celebrate, he came out of courtesy, out of that quiet professionalism that had kept him employed and respected even if invisibly for the last 6 years. He didn't belong to this world of designer heels and boardroom whispers, and he never wanted to. He just wanted a stable life for Amara. Across the room, his boss, Veronica Hayes, VP of Operations, looked like a queen out of place. Her perfectly tailored black dress hugged her frame as she staggered slightly, leaning against a couch like a fallen statue. Her confidence had melted into drunken giggles and barely coherent speech. A half-finished glass of red wine dangled from her hand. She was the kind of woman who ruled by silence, whose heels echoed louder than most voices in the building, and who had once reprimanded Malcolm for delivering a quarterly logistics report 17 minutes late. But tonight that version of her was gone. In its place was a vulnerable mess, abandoned by every so-called colleague once the laughter died down. She's too far gone. Someone whispered behind Malcolm. She shouldn't drive. Someone should take her home, another voice added. Not me. I'm not risking anything for her. That's when Malcolm's eyes met hers. Or rather, what remained of them, glassy, confused, helpless, and something clicked. A decision made itself in his chest, slow and silent like most of his life. Decisions. He put down his glass and walked over. Miss Hayes, he said gently, crouching beside her. She blinked slowly, recognition faint in her face. You can't stay here like this. You need to go home. She mumbled something, maybe leave me or I'm fine, but she wasn't fine. Not even close. He looked around. The room had emptied. Only the cleaning crew had begun resetting chairs. Malcolm approached the receptionist, who was packing gift bags. Do you know her address? He asked. Why? The woman squintd. I'm taking her home. She's not driving like this. There was hesitation in her eyes. This was breaking a few lines in the HR manual. But then, seeing the sincerity on his face, she nodded and pulled up the address from the internal contact system. You're a good man, she whispered. Malcolm didn't respond. He returned to Veronica, carefully lifted her up from the couch, her body soft and limp against his arms. She smelled of Chanel and disappointment. The keys were in her clutch. He picked them up, gently guiding her out of the building like she was a fragile secret. Outside, the cold slapped them both. The company's security guard opened the door. To Veronica's black Audi, Malcolm helped her in. She leaned her head against the window like a child, mumbling something about her ex-husband or maybe her father. It was hard to tell. The drive was slow, careful, almost reverent. The city lights passed like ghosts outside the window. For the first time, Malcolm saw Veronica not as a boss, not as the woman who intimidated interns with a single raised brow, but as a human being who'd built a fortress around herself and now didn't know how to walk out of it. Every now and then, she whispered things, not to him, to no one. You think they like me? They don't, they never did. Malcolm didn't answer. He just drove. At the entrance of her high-rise building, the doorman immediately stood up. Miss Hayes? He asked, confused. She's fine, Malcolm said. She just needs some rest. I'll walk her in, make sure she's okay. The doorman hesitated. You her driver? No, just someone who didn't want her ending up in the news tomorrow. Inside the elevator, Veronica leaned on his shoulder. Her voice came out in a whisper. I used to be better. Before all this, Malcolm didn't ask what this was. He didn't ask anything. That was his way, let people hold their own silence. He had plenty of his own. Inside the apartment, clean, elegant, but strangely cold. He guided her to the living room couch and gently laid her down. He looked around, found a soft throw blanket on the recliner, and covered her with it. As he turned to go, she stirred. Her hand reached out weakly. Don't go, she said, her voice cracked with emotion. Malcolm paused. In that moment, time slowed. A single father, used to nights of silence after bedtime stories and reheated meals, stood in the living room of a woman who seemed to have everything but maybe had nothing at all. I'm not staying, he said softly, but you're safe now, sleep. He placed her purse beside her, the keys on the table, and scribbled a quick note from a notepad near the phone. You were in no state to drive. I brought you home safe, keys on the table. Get some water, Malcolm. Then, without a sound, he left back into the cold, into the quiet, into the kind of life where good men like him don't expect anything in return. But this time, the silence wasn't closing a door. It was opening one. The blinding morning sunlight spilled through the oversized windows of the penthouse like a judgmental spotlight. Veronica Hayes groaned, pulling the thin throw blanket over her face before realizing where she was. Home, yes, but not in her bed. She blinked twice, vision hazy. Her head throbbed with a pressure that made every breath feel like punishment. The scent of stale wine lingered faintly in the air. Her black dress was wrinkled, her heels tossed to one side of the cream-colored carpet. Her mascara had left faint shadows beneath her eyes. The glass coffee table in front of her was perfectly arranged, except for a folded piece of white paper sitting quietly like it didn't belong. She sat up, dizzy. The sudden motion made her stomach lurch and her heart race. What happened last night? She reached for the note with trembling hands and unfolded it. Greater than you were in no state to drive. I brought you home safe. Keys on the table. Get some water. Malcolm? Malcolm. Her eyes widened. That name sent an electric jolt through her spine. She struggled to piece things together. She remembered the party. The drinks. Too many of them. She remembered laughing at something meaningless with coworkers who always pretended to like her once the bar opened. She remembered a couch, then darkness, then a man's voice. A gentle, calm voice. That was him. It had to be She looked down at herself, suddenly anxious. Was she taken advantage of? Her eyes searched the room for signs nothing was out of place. Her purse was untouched, her dress intact. She looked again at the note, her heart pounding louder than the silence. Malcolm. Warehouse supervisor. 6 years at the company. Quiet. Always respectful, always distant. She had passed by him 100 times. She had scolded him twice, once for a missed deadline and once for a truck order mishap. Both times he never argued. Just nodded and corrected it. She barely remembered the sound of his voice. And now he had seen her at her absolute lowest. She buried her face in her hands. What did he think of her? That she was just another cold, arrogant executive who couldn't hold her liquor. A drunk, fragile woman with no real friends. Was he going to tell people? Did he already? Her thoughts spiraled until she couldn't sit still anymore. She stood up, brushed herself off, and walked to the kitchen to splash water on her face. She stared at her reflection in the microwave's mirrored surface. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes looked older, empty. Pull it together, she told herself. You're Veronica Hayes, you don't break. You don't owe anyone anything, but her own words felt weak. She dressed in silence. No music, no emails, no calls. Just her breathing and the sound of guilt crawling under her skin. When she arrived at the office that afternoon, the atmosphere felt different. Or maybe she did. The open floor buzzed with the usual chatterphones ringing, keyboards tapping, the hum of printers. But as she walked through the logistics department, her eyes couldn't help but scan for him. There he was, Malcolm, at his desk, working on his usual spreadsheets, head down, focus intact. Asterisk, she hesitated for a moment, then walked toward him. Every step felt heavier than her stilettos should have allowed. Malcolm, she said softly. He looked up. His eyes met hers, calm, polite, no sarcasm, no discomfort. Just a small nod. Asterisk, yes, Miss Hayes? Asterisk, there was a moment of pure silence between them. 1,000 thoughts passed through her, and yet none made it to her lips the way she rehearsed. Asterisk, thank you, she finally said, for last night. For making sure I got home. Asterisk, his expression didn't change. He gave her a slight smile, more like a signal of acknowledgement than anything warm. Asterisk, no problem, ma'am. Just wanted to make sure you were safe. Asterisk, that was it. That was all he said. No pride, no tension. Just the same man he had always been, silent, composed, firm. She waited for a smirk, a joke, a judgment. None came. Asterisk, I don't remember everything. She admitted. You don't have to, he replied simply. She nodded, unsure what to do with his grace. Asterisk, she wanted to apologize for making him responsible for her. She wanted to explain that she wasn't always that person. That the drinks weren't about fun, they were about escape. That sometimes being a woman in a man's boardroom meant carrying more weight than one glass of wine could ever hide. Asterisk, but she didn't say any of that. Because Veronica Hayes never explained, not to anyone. Especially not to a subordinate. Asterisk, but that day she wanted to. Not because he asked for it, but because he didn't. Asterisk, she noticed the small photo frame on his desk. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9, smiling with missing front teeth and braids. She was holding a science project trophy, beaming with pride. The kind of photo you keep near your heart, even in the middle of work. Asterisk, that your daughter? She asked gently, nodding toward. The photo, he smiled, the first real one. Yeah, Amara. Asterisk, she's beautiful, Veronica said. Her voice sounded unfamiliar to herself, softer, human. Asterisk. Thank you. He replied. Asterisk, she stared a second longer, then forced herself to walk away. She had meetings, deadlines, an image to maintain, but deep down something shifted. He had seen her collapsed, incoherent, vulnerable, and yet, when she came to him now, he treated her with the same quiet dignity he always had, like she was just another person, not a project, not a boss, not a disaster. That kind of mercy was rare, and it was the first time in years she wondered if the way she had been living isolated, cold, untouchable, was really living at all. The next few days passed in an oddly tense calm. Veronica tried to act as if nothing had happened. She chaired meetings with her usual steel gaze, gave orders with precision, and walked the corridors in heels that echoed power. But something inside her was different, less armored, more aware of eyes that weren't judgmental, just observant. One pair in particular. Asterisk, Malcolm didn't change. He continued to arrive on time, complete reports, and guide his team. With steady efficiency, no dramatic glances. No awkward energy, just quiet excellence, and that bothered her. Asterisk, not because he made her uncomfortable, but because he didn't. He treated her like he always did, professionally, respectfully, but without fear or reverence. Like she was human. She wasn't used to that. Most either kissed up or backed away. But not him. Asterisk, she found herself pausing outside his department more than once, pretending to be checking something on her phone. Once, she even caught herself smiling as she overheard him telling a younger employee how to handle a logistics reroute calmly without escalating the problem. His tone was composed, patient, fatherly. Asterisk, by Thursday, something inside her cracked open a little. Asterisk, around noon, Veronica walked into the logistics floor, something she rarely did. She spotted Malcolm at the far end of the room, hunched over a tablet, making notes. She hesitated, her heels clicking softly as she approached. Asterisk, Malcolm? She said, quieter than usual. He looked up, instantly alert but not startled. Yes, Miss Hayes. Asterisk, she took a breath. Do you want to grab a coffee with me during lunch? Asterisk, there was a long pause. The room around them carried on, unaware of the shift taking place in this quiet exchange. Asterisk, Malcolm blinked. Me? Asterisk, yes, you, she replied with a small, nervous smile. Unless you've got more important things to do. Asterisk, he studied her. Not like a man who was flattered, but like someone trying to understand why. Then he nodded once. Asterisk, sure, I'll meet you in the lobby in 10. 10's perfect, she said, already turning to leave before she talked herself out of it. Asterisk, they sat at a small cafe 2 blocks from the office. Neutral ground, nothing fancy. Just 2 people and 2 coffees between them. Asterisk, Veronica stirred her drink too much. She didn't know how to begin. She wasn't used to small talk that mattered. So she dove in. Asterisk, I don't usually ask employees to coffee. I figured, Malcolm said calmly. She chuckled awkwardly. Right, well, I wanted to talk. Thank you again for that night. You didn't have to do that. Asterisk. I did, he said. Would have done it for anyone. You needed help. Asterisk, she paused, then met his eyes. That's the thing. People usually only help me when they're afraid not to, or when they want something in return. I don't work that way, Malcolm replied simply. I can see that. Asterisk, another pause. She finally relaxed a little. Tell me about your daughter. Amara, right? Asterisk, Malcolm's eyes softened immediately. Yeah, she's 8, smart, obsessed with outer space right now. Wants to be the first girl on Mars. Asterisk, Veronica smiled. I like that ambition, asterisk. She keeps me going, he said. Everything I do is for her. Been raising her on my own since her mom passed away. Asterisk, Veronica looked down. I'm sorry, asterisk, he shrugged gently. Life throws things at you, you either break or build. Asterisk, she looked at him like she was hearing wisdom she'd paid thousands. In therapy for asterisk, I always thought being strong meant keeping everyone at a distance, she said. But you make strength look quiet, simple? Asterisk, Malcolm sipped his coffee. Strong isn't loud, it's just consistent. Asterisk, that silence between them was no longer awkward, it was full. Comfortable, asterisk, Veronica leaned back. Maybe I've had it wrong all these years. Maybe it's not about how many people answer your emails. Maybe it's about who would carry you home without expecting anything. Malcolm looked at her, his voice gentle. You don't have to prove anything. To me, Veronica. Asterisk, the way he said her name soft, unweighted, landed in her chest like a whisper she didn't know she needed to hear. Asterisk, and in that quiet, over 2 cups of coffee, something began. Asterisk, not a romance. Not yet, but a connection, real, unspoken, growing. A week had passed since the coffee conversation, but the warmth it stirred hadn't left Veronica's chest. It followed her through meetings, during morning briefings, even while she signed off quarterly reports. Something about the calmness of Malcolm's words, his presence, his refusal to see her as anything but a human being, it kept replaying in her head like a quiet song she couldn't turn off. Asterisk, Friday evening, as she sat in her dimly lit apartment. Sipping tea, she glanced at her phone and hesitated. Then she typed a message, asterisk, greater than dinner, my place, you and Amara, no suits. Just food and people, asterisk, she stared at it, debated deleting it, then hit send. Malcolm replied 20 minutes later, greater than she's. Excited already. We'll be there at 6. Asterisk, Veronica smiled, a nervous flutter running through her. She hadn't cooked for anyone in years, not outside catering or polite board dinners. She wasn't worried about impressing Malcolm. That's what made her nervous. She didn't want to impress him. She wanted to be real. Asterisk, by 5:50 p.m., her kitchen smelled of baked chicken, seasoned green beans, and warm honey cornbread. She wore a loose cream sweater and jeans, no makeup, no perfume, just herself. Asterisk, at 6:02 the doorbell rang. She opened the door to find Malcolm standing there, holding a bottle of sparkling juice. Beside him stood a little girl in a bright yellow hoodie, her hair braided in 2 thick puffs, eyes wide with curiosity. Asterisk, hi, the girl said brightly. I'm Amara. Asterisk, Veronica knelt slightly. Well, hi there. I've heard a lot about you. Asterisk, Amara stepped in and looked around. You live here? It's so shiny? Asterisk, Veronica laughed. That's because no one ever spills juice in here. Asterisk, Malcolm handed over the bottle. She insisted we bring something. Asterisk, you didn't have to, Veronica replied, accepting it with a smile. But thank you. Asterisk, they sat down for dinner at the small dining table near the window. Veronica had moved her usual sterile centerpiece aside and added a bowl of fruit instead. Trying to create some warmth, Asterisk Amara talked excitedly between bites about school, space, a drawing contest she won. Veronica listened intently, genuinely charmed. Asterisk, she's got your calm. Veronica said to Malcolm as Amara went to wash her hands. Asterisk, she's got her mother's light. Malcolm answered, a quiet sadness under his voice. Asterisk, Veronica's expression softened. She's lucky to have you. Asterisk, he looked at her, not with pride, but with humility. We're lucky to have each other. Asterisk, after dinner, they moved to the couch. Amara found a book from Veronica's shelf, an old illustrated fairy. Taylan began flipping through it. Asterisk, Veronica looked at Malcolm. Thank you for saying yes to this. Asterisk, you didn't have to invite us, he said, but I'm glad you did. Asterisk, I didn't do it out of obligation, she replied. I did it because I wanted to know what peace felt like again. Asterisk, they sat in silence for a moment, watching Amara laugh at a cartoonish drawing. Asterisk, Malcolm turned to Veronica, voice soft. Most people only see the role you play, the boss, the woman in control. But there's more than that. Asterisk, she looked at him, eyes slightly glassy. And you saw it? When I was at my worst, asterisk, I didn't see you at your worst, he said. I saw you without the mask. Asterisk, and that moment, without candles, without wine, without pretense, was more intimate than any date she had ever been on. Asterisk, the weeks that followed were unlike anything Malcolm had expected. And even more so for Veronica. Asterisk, she began showing up in places no one expected her, the warehouse floor, the break room, even the company picnic, which she had previously labeled a waste of payroll. But now she wasn't just present, she was engaged. People noticed, whispers floated. Some speculated about her and Malcolm, others laughed it off. But she didn't care. And neither did he. Asterisk, their worlds had collided quietly, without fanfare. What started as a single favor had evolved into something neither of them had a name for, but both of them felt. A rhythm, a connection. Something not romantic yet, but deeply human. Asterisk, one rainy evening, Veronica drove out of the city and pulled into Malcolm's modest neighborhood. The homes were small but well kept. She parked by the curb, umbrella in hand, and walked up the steps of the porch where wind chimes swayed in the breeze. Asterisk, Malcolm opened the door before she knocked. He smiled, slightly surprised, but not shaken. Didn't expect you. Asterisk, I needed to see you, she said simply. And Amara, if she's still awake. Asterisk, she's in her room, he said, stepping aside. Come in. Asterisk, the inside of the house smelled like cinnamon and paper, cozy and full of life. School drawings lined the hallway. On the wall above the couch was a framed picture of Amara, beaming in her science fair ribbon. Asterisk, Veronica sat on the edge of the sofa. She looked nervous, which was rare. She cleared her throat. Asterisk, I've been thinking about something, she began. About that night. The party. Malcolm sat opposite her, silent. I didn't just drink too much because of stress or loneliness. I drank because I hated who I was becoming. Cold, isolated, power without purpose. I had everything I thought I wanted, and none of it mattered. Asterisk, he let her speak, never interrupting. Asterisk, but you showed up. You didn't just carry me home, you showed me home. You reminded me what kindness looks like, without strings. She paused, breathing deeply. And I realized something else, she continued. Every strong person I've met was holding themselves up, alone, like I was, like you were. But maybe we're not supposed to keep carrying it all? Alone. Asterisk, Malcolm leaned forward. Veronica, what are you saying? Asterisk, I'm saying I want to be part of your world. Not as your boss, not as someone who needs saving, but as someone who's finally ready to give, to try, to show up. Asterisk, he looked at her for a long moment, measuring her words, her honesty. Then he nodded once. Asterisk, you already are, he said. Whether you know it or not. Asterisk from down the hallway came light footsteps. Amara peeked her head in, rubbing her eyes. Asterisk, Miss Veronica? She said sleepily. Asterisk, hey, sweetie. Veronica smiled. Sorry, did I wake you? Asterisk, no, Amara said. I just wanted to say goodnight. She ran to Malcolm and hugged him, then looked at Veronica expectantly. Veronica opened her arms. Amara hugged her, tight and warm. Asterisk, she called you Mom yesterday, Malcolm said gently, watching. Asterisk, Veronica froze. Her eyes welled up instantly. Asterisk, she what? Asterisk, Amara looked up. At school, I told my friend you were like my other mom. 'Cause you bring me books and ask about my stars? Asterisk, Veronica could barely speak. She blinked back the tears, holding Amara close. Asterisk, that night, they didn't talk about titles or jobs or mistakes. They watched cartoons with hot cocoa and laughed until Amara fell asleep on Veronica's lap. Asterisk, as Malcolm watched them together. He finally let himself believe something he hadn't dared to before. That healing doesn't always come in grand gestures, it comes in moments, in presence. In showing up again and again. Asterisk, and for the first time in a long time, they weren't just surviving anymore, they were building something real, something called family.